Hello everyone, you're on the channel Accessibility Club, and today we are going to learn a bit more about cellular respiration, which is one of the most important topics in IB biology curriculum. In general, this topic will be divided into two parts, and the first part, this video, will cover learning objectives of the IB biology standard level guide. And similarly, the second video will cover the learning objectives of the IB Biology higher level guide. And you can read the cell guide's learning objectives on this slide, but we will consider each of them solely during the video. So let's move on. In general, what is cellular respiration? On this picture, you can see the reaction of aerobic cellular respiration. You may see that glucose and oxygen are the reactants that are necessary for this reaction to occur, and the carbon dioxide, water, and energy are the end products. In this case, carbon dioxide is the waste product, and it is excreted from our body, while water and energy are saved, and energy is saved in the form of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So the first learning objective states that cell respiration is the controlled release of energy from organic compounds to produce ATP. In this case, organic compounds basically means food. For example, sugars, proteins, and lipids. So, ATP, or in other words, adenosine triphosphate, is the form of energy that is usable by cells. In order to make ATP, or the process of cellular respiration, a phosphate group is linked to adenosine diphosphate, and this process of combining ADP with a phosphate group requires energy, which is obtained from breaking down organic compounds, and specifically glucose, as you have seen on the previous picture. Well, this picture pretty much sums up the process of formation of ATP. Below, you can see ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, and diphosphate in this case means two phosphate molecules that are linked to adenine or adenosine. And when we add another phosphate group, we form adenosine triphosphate, which has three phosphate molecules. And oppositely, when adenosine triphosphate loses its phosphate molecule and forms ADP, the chemical energy is released, and this energy can be used by the cells to perform different processes that will be considered later. So, the second learning objective states that ATP from cell respiration is immediately available as a source of energy in the cell. So, why do we need ATP? As I said earlier, ATP is used by our cells in order to perform many processes. First of all, a good example is active transport. Active transport is used, for example, by our nervous system, and it is essential for our organism, and so yes, it shows why ATP is necessary. The second reason is production of large molecules such as DNA, RNA, and proteins. And the third reason is to move organelles inside the cells. For example, muscle contractions require a lot of ATP, or for example, movement of vesicles, such as exocytosis, also requires ATP. And all these processes processes are essential for our organism. This picture is a good representation of the, in some way, cycle of ATP and ADP. Cell respiration produces ATP from ADP, while ADP is produced as a result of active cell processes from ATP. However, it is very important to keep in mind that this cycle is not closed, because some part of ATP is always lost as heat energy. So yes, that is the reason we always need a constant supply of ATP. I mean, as I said earlier, energy from breaking down ATP usually ends up as heat energy, which is lost by cells to the surroundings, as you may see on this picture. On this image, the body temperature of the dog is much higher than the temperature of the surroundings, which means that the heat will be lost to the surroundings. And this heat is the end-up form of ATP. Therefore, some proportion of ATP, usually, yes, relatively large proportion of ATP will be lost as a heat to the surroundings, and that is the reason we always need a constant supply of ATP from food. The third learning objective states that anaerobic cell respiration gives a small yield of ATP from glucose. So, here it is very important to note the word anaerobic, because anaerobic, as you may know, means no oxygen. And in this case, this learning objective states that in conditions when there is no oxygen, cell respiration produces a very small amount of ATP, or in other words, energy, from glucose. However, our body still refers to anaerobic respiration in some situations. And let's discuss these reasons. First of all, anaerobic respiration is really useful in conditions when there are no oxygens. Well, yes, basically the main goal of anaerobic respiration. During exercises, physical exercises, there is shortage of oxygen, and that is the reason our body refers to anaerobic respiration. The second reason is quick burst of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes, aerobic respiration takes relatively much more time in comparison to anaerobic respiration, because anaerobic respiration consists of only one step, glycolysis. On the other hand, aerobic respiration consists of a lot of steps, including glycolysis, link reaction, Krebs cycle, chemiosmosis. But all these steps will be considered in the second part of this topic, of this video. I'm sorry. So let's move to the third reason why anaerobic respiration is useful. Some environments, such as waterlogged soils, have shortage of oxygen. Therefore, living organisms there must adapt to such extreme conditions, and anaerobic respiration is one of the essential parts of this adaptation. So this slide elaborates on the first two reasons of why anaerobic respiration is useful. So let's consider them. During physical exercises, aerobic respiration on its own cannot meet the demand for ATP, because literally all muscle cells are using ATP, for example, during running. And aerobic respiration, which relatively takes takes a lot of time, cannot produce enough amount of ATP. Therefore, our body refers to anaerobic respiration. which takes much less amount of time, so that more ATP will be produced in a short period. However, it is important to keep in mind that excessively high concentrations of lactate, which is the end product of anaerobic respiration, is harmful to our body. And that's why we have a limit for anaerobic respiration. Here I want to come back to the aerobic respiration's formula. So you may see that carbon dioxide is the waste product in this case, and we can easily remove this waste product from our organism. However, waste products of anaerobic respiration, or lactate, is much more difficult to be removed from our organism. Therefore, we have some limit for anaerobic respiration, after which it is necessary to remove this toxic compound from our organism. Also, here I would like to emphasize that animals and plants have different final waste products. Animals have lactate, while plants have ethanol and carbon dioxide. So now let's move to applications of anaerobic respiration in real world. First of all, it's baking. So as you may know, yeast is added to dough so that bread will have a lighter texture. This happens because of anaerobic respiration, since yeast produces CO2. So as you may see on this image, and this CO2 creates these bubbles on the surface of the dough, and as a result, bread has a lighter texture. The second application of anaerobic respiration is production of bioethanol. Yeast is added to sugarcane or corn, and as a result of anaerobic respiration, bioethanol is produced because, again, ethanol is the end up product of anaerobic respiration in plants and yeast. So finally, moving to the last learning objective, it states aerobic cell respiration requires oxygen and gives a large yield of ATP from glucose. So this slide basically sums up differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. As you may see, aerobic respiration requires oxygen, as it can be understood from its name. On the other hand, anaerobic respiration has no need in oxygen, and the only reactant that is necessary is glucose. Secondly, aerobic respiration requires some time. Oppositely, anaerobic respiration is relatively quick. Third difference is that aerobic respiration produces 38 ATP molecules per 1 glucose molecule. And this is a significant difference in relation to anaerobic respiration, which produces only 2 ATP molecules per 1 glucose molecules. But here I would like to add that it's not always 38 ATP molecules produced as a result of aerobic respiration, because some amount of ATP molecules will be used by other metabolic processes, and let's generalize 30 plus ATP molecules. So the fourth difference is that the end products of aerobic respiration are water, carbon dioxide, and ATP. However, anaerobic respiration does not produce water. Instead, lactic acid or ethyl alcohol. And the last difference between aerobic and anaerobic respirations is that aerobic respiration occurs in mitochondria. And that is the main reason why aerobic respiration does not occur in bacteria or other small living organisms, because they simply do not have mitochondria. However, all living organisms, literally all cells, have cytoplasm, and therefore all living organisms can conduct anaerobic respiration, which occurs in cytoplasm. So that's it. This is the end of the first part of the videos about cellular respiration in the context of IB biology program. In the next video, I'm going to cover HL part of this topic, which considers such topics as Krebs cycle, glycolysis, chemiosmosis, and so on. So don't miss our second video, subscribe to the channel, and have a good day.